Oh, thank you, Nicole. So this is also why the final assignment was done around two main objects. The first one was to document and disseminate the experiences shared during the conference session by developing a booklet which is directed to the communities, first of all, the communities that lend their voices for such a great panel, the siege partners, and the broader public. And the second objective is to assess whether the panel and the testimonies that come from it could serve as a foundation for a broader community and research project, expanding into a comparative case studies and policy-oriented outputs on land property, financial inclusion, and environmental justice. So let's go first with the great voices of the panel. I was super happy that I could be able to put together such a great voices representing such a beautiful initiatives. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of them and their project. So first of all, we have Bonita Adeb. She was representing two initiatives, the Ujamaa Seeds and the STEAM Onward in the USA. We have now Charles he was representing the project of the Black Environmental Initiative. He's originally from Côte d'Ivoire, but now he's based in Toronto, Canada. We have also Jed Baker. He is a Métis scholar working from the Resilience Institute in Canada, but for the panel, he represented the voice of the Mistasawi people in Canada and their food sovereignty project, a project that he led and started to implement. And last but not least, we had Héctor Anguiano from the Purépecha indigenous community of Nuevo San Juan Paranguricutiro in Mexico. So starting with Bonita, she let us know about that the Ujamaa Seeds project and the STEAM Onward projects are two initiatives that brought together elders and youth, especially during COVID-19. As a high school teacher, she began with the STEAM Onward project, working to offer opportunities in science and agriculture for underserved youth. So she always talked very happy and proudly. You can see how her voice even changed whenever she says that her students are always very realistic, but very eager and willing also to create change where and how they can, even when the resources are limited. So through school programs, they engage in environmental justice projects and learn to care for the communities. But when COVID hit, their focus changed from planting school and community gardens to helping the elders to grow their own food. And Bonita told how she could realize that the elder community was completely abandoned. And she thought about these victory gardens that were created in the Second World War. So she inspired herself in that idea. And she started to do this effort also about showing people that food independence could also mean empowerment. And I never thought how important and relevant this could be, particularly in these days. But then after COVID passed, the elders started to grow their own foods. The Ujamaa Seeds also became a way to teach people of self-reliance and cultural heritage through seeds. So now, from collecting the memories of over 140 seed keepers, Ujamaa Seeds grew into a living archive of African American agricultural heritage, while STEAM Onward continues to empower young people to reconnect science, farming, and cultural identity. So for her, these programs show how youth leadership and ancestral knowledge can create food security from the ground up to the future. And we carry on letting you know about Jed Baker, who I told you he works for the Resilience Institute in Canada, but he's talked to us this time about the Mistasawi people and their food sovereignty program. We have during the session, we have a whole explanation about how the program also is bringing back the buffalo to that area, something that the Mistasawi people is very happy for. But also we also have to also learn of how the buffalo is very important for the restoration of the place from the buffalo's knot. We have a whole experience about it. I didn't know how important the buffalo's knot could be, but it's very interesting. But anyways, he also talked to us about how through these food security programs, they are also implementing what they call the living labs, where indigenous and non-indigenous farmers are experimenting with crops and regenerative agriculture. So he also shared that from personal experience was very important for him to talk about the impacts that the colonization had also in food security and diet in the traditional diets. He told us that he shared with us that his father died from a heart attack. So for him, it was very important, and he has documented also how this impact has also hit the people's health. And this is why also we have a lot of sickness or illness that we didn't see before because of that change on the traditional diets. So he also talked about part of the health issues that these loss of traditional diets have brought are also mental health issues. And he was also very aware about not only, depression and anxiety that some of these communities live, but also addictions. There is a lot of alcoholism rates in these communities. So this is also why he has, or they have, the Mistasawi people have recognized this. And the programs on food sovereignty that they are implementing not only help to rebuild sustainable food systems, but also support spiritual healing by reconnecting people to the land and their identity. So through ceremonies, language sessions, cultural practices, community members, including those recovering from the addictions, find purpose and balance on working with the land. So he also, at the end, he shared with us that as a non-Indigenous person with experience and personal connections with the Mistasawi people, for him, the way to move forward is to use the tools we have available and bringing together in synergy the knowledge of the Mistasawis and Indigenous people with the Western knowledge, because that could create a very powerful and useful tool. So for him, these projects are also about connection, reconciliation, and restoring ecosystems and relationships. So now we move to Naolo Charles. As I told you, he's originally from Côte d'Ivoire, now based in Toronto, and he has created this organization that is called the Black Environmental Initiative. This is an organization dedicated to advance environmental justice by empowering Black and marginalized communities through education, green jobs opportunities, and community-led sustainable projects. So being an immigrant himself, he talks about how he knows from firsthand how displacement and urbanization can distance people from the land and the cost of it in the people. So Part of the projects that he has with the Black Environmental Initiative is the one that is called Roots for Resilience. We are going to see a video later on about this project because he said it to share, and it's a very beautiful video. But by his organization and these projects in particular, he seeks to reverse that disconnection by creating spaces where Black and Brown youth can touch the soil again, observe how nature works, and feel part of something larger than themselves. So for him, he talked also, you can see how his face illuminated when he shared how amazing it is for him, and we are going to watch that as well, to watch the young people experience this reconnection with the land. Because what he sees is not only joy, but transformation, a sense of belonging that counters the isolation of the city life. So for him, food sovereignty is not just about planting crops, but about healing historical divisions and building unity across borders. And now we move to the testimony of Hector Anguiano. The community that he is from, they have this incredible history. This community was displaced by a volcano eruption in 1943. A neighboring town gave them a piece of barren land so they could at least have a place to stay, because try to imagine that one day you wake up, you start to feel that the soil in your backyard is a little bit, warm, and then all of a sudden is super hot, and by the night you don't have a place where to stay because a volcano has done their job. So they literally were born again from the ashes, transforming that barren land into 11 community enterprises that generate more than 1,000 jobs every year. A living example for me of resilience and collective strength, because guided by their ancestral teaching that the forests give them life, they rebuild their territory and purpose, grounded in the principle of unity and benefit for all. He shared with me how the community meetings are the heart of their democracy, internal democracy, ensuring that all decisions that I made around their territory and their resources are made collectively. For him, food sovereignty is not an abstract concept, but a daily practice, making sure that every family has something to eat, something to plant, and something to live from. Today, Nuevo San Juan is one of the strongest models of collective land management in Latin America. Besides unity and organization, another key to their success is that they combine traditional Purépecha knowledge with modern practices for seed rescue and agroecology. They are looking ahead, knowing that climate change also might affect how they use the natural resources. So they continue to adapt and to transform, and they prove that unity and organization are the roots of true sovereignty. So they actually share it with me, this story, because one of the enterprises is about sustainable tourism. So when COVID hit, the 6 families that lived from that project directly, of course, they didn't have any incomes because the tourists were not coming. So all the community gathered together to plan which role they will have during the pandemic, so they could make sure that the families could get their income. So no one is left behind in the community. That's really, incredible for me. But at the end, he shared with me how excited he feels also every time that he has a chance to share their story beyond Mexico, because he finds hope in realizing that they are not alone in this struggle. So he is also very surprised how many peoples are also fighting for their land, their seeds, and their right to decide. And before we move to the next slide, I would like just to highlight some of the testimonies that I took directly from them. Of course, I wanted to put almost all what they said in the panel, but that was not possible. But for example, by the closing of the panel, Bonita shared that what she observed is less challenge, but blessings, because most of actions take place in the mind and in the heart. So she called I mean, she let us know that Mother Nature needs us and wants us back. And there is always a place for us in this world, for each one of us. And that food independence is power. That words, are always, coming into my head. Then Jed Baker invites us to think of the land as a teacher, a relative, and because it has things to teach us if we listen. We all need to reconnect and have our own individual, personal, spiritual relationship with the land. Now, Olo Charles closed letting us know that when Black youth touch the soul, something changes. They feel human again, part of a family. We are losing because we are divided. That is exactly why I have hope, because united, we will win. And then Hector shared that what we do here is a commitment to life, to the dignity to our communities, and to deciding our own destiny. Food is not just a product, it is a right, a culture, a future. United, we show to the world that a community model is a model of hope. So you can imagine how happy and how inspired I was after that panel, and after re-listening to the panel, to put the testimonies in paper. So it is a huge injection for me of hope and energy, everything. And what was the guiding question that led to all this conversation? So the main guiding question was, can food sovereignty and environmental justice repair what hegemonic systems tore apart? And the other question that brought the discussion was, how are communities using food sovereignty to regenerate identity and connection to land, reimagining systems once rooted in exclusion and dispossessions toward equity? And this is something that I would like you to bear in mind, because we are going to talk a little bit more about it later during the session. So as you have seen during the conversation across all testimonies, a shared vision emerged, that the connection with the land is life, is identity, and is hope. Each one of them spoke of food and seed sovereignty as pathways to dignity, belonging, and the right to self-determination. And for me, that is empowerment. Actually, I should correct it and put, as Nicole said, empowerment. So these stories are also about unity of ancestral wisdom, unity with knowledge, with modern knowledge, unity of individual action to a collective one, and unity to restore balance between people and nature. So for me, that is a clear reminder that there is another way to live, an alternative one grounded in care, reciprocity, and harmony. So it's on us to create a future with a spiritual and cultural bond with the planet. And that activism and love for others are also part of that connection to the land. So from all the key insights that came, I could put, or highlight 4 main points. The first one is that food sovereignty is resistance and is healing. Communities are not only producing food, but also reclaiming culture, memory, and dignity through it. That property can be redefined through care and reciprocity. So the territorial roots and belonging is not ownership, it's actually a stewardship and responsibility toward the land and community. That migration also can be reframed through belonging, because while often born of crisis, pain, and displacement, migration also carries continuity, encounter, healing, and solidarity through a common bond with the land. And here also, I kept in my mind the stories that Bonita said, how she have heard also the stories that when people in Africa were detached from the land and brought to the United States as slaves, one thing they could not stop them to do is to bring their seeds in their pockets. So from bringing seeds, traditions, and resilience across borders is that they also find this solidarity and common bond with other communities. And that also food sovereignty, the 4th point is that food sovereignty is collective resource management and resilience. So through forests, the return of the buffalo, and it's important, it's not for the recovery of the land. These stories are also part of roots projects that show us how communities can adapt and regenerate even under climate and economic pressure. Once again, that is real power for me. So the voices of the panelists came together as a collective testimony of harmony, resilience, and shared stories of seeds, land, identity, justice, and wisdom. And each from them talking for a very different territory, yet they could echo in what's true. That healing begins when we return to the land, to community, and to ourselves. So these reflections reveal that food sovereignty is much more than just agriculture. It's a path to restore memory and to rebuild land and environmental justice across generations. And this is how it came, the first outcome of the of this panel. For me, the booklet, which is the result that I have also handed in, emerged not as a report, but actually as an expression of gratitude, an offering that could go back to the communities after such a beautiful and meaningful conversation. So it waves together the testimonies to recognize and thank the communities that shared their experience through the panelists, and bring these reflections back so they can see also where their work, their unity, and their voices are reaching. Of course, to broaden the reach of their voices in accessible materials for practitioners, policymakers, and of course, fellows. I will share it with you once I get the authorization, of course, from the siege. And these are connecting stories, connecting their stories one in another and with a wider audience. I also, remember Bonita when she said, like, we are willing to share with anyone who wants to listen. So that is also part of the objective of this booklet. But for me also, it came a personal commitment to active listening, but of validation and co-creation. I want for the communities not only to validate their voice, but to own them and to control them. Because that's very easy that researchers sometimes we do. We just come, we get the testimonies, and thank you so much. I forget about you. No, for me, it's a commitment, of this co-creation, and the communities are always in charge and in control of their voices and why, and what do we other people do with them. So of course the content has been reviewed and approved by all the panelists, who they also did their sharing with their communities, so they could all agree on the contents. And here on your right side, you have some images about how the booklet look like in the design. It's quite long because this one, you can have the voices just as they came out from the panel. So it was I did enjoy a lot while I was doing this process. So as we talk, the second objective of this assignment was to assess whether the panel insights could serve as a foundation for a broader community and research project, exploring into comparative case studies and policy-oriented outputs on land property, financial mechanism, and investment leading to environmental justice. So what I could conclude from the exchange of the panel is that food sovereignty is both tradition and local practices, a living and dynamic framework that redefines and transforms how we understand property, justice, and belonging, grounding these ideas in care, reciprocity, and cultural continuity. The great potential and the importance of continuing this dialogue to strengthen collaboration across borders and to build on the shared common points that emerge. And also that the exchange itself can serve as a foundation for cross-border research, exploring how community-led practices can inspire new approaches to policymaking, all in pursuit of environmental justice, both at the international and national level. But before we continue, and I would like to hear with Nicole if we will have time for a little activity, if it's possible. I don't know how much time we have left.
Yes, we have 20 minutes left, so yeah.
Okay.
Do you need breakout rooms?
No, I'm not gonna need breakout rooms. I'm just gonna skip the video and I'm going to send you the link. Okay. After that. No, let's do the video. I think it's important. But so just to put us in tone and to connect more with the conversation of the panel, I would like to take a moment for reflection, and I would like to share the story about the 7th generation principle. To understand the visions that have been shared so far in the panel, I would like to let you know about the 6 nation people that are located in Northeastern America and the southern eastern part of Canada. And the 6 nations people are conformed by the Mohawk, the Oneida, the Onondaga, the Cayuga, the Seneca, and the Tuscarora. So this confederacy is one of the oldest democracies in the world. And since long ago, what the leaders of the 6 nations people do when they gather together to make decisions for their people and their territory is that before taking any choice, their leaders always ask themselves one little but powerful question. How is this decision going to affect the 7 generations yet to come? But by doing that, they put in front not only a question, but a commitment. A commitment that makes life a responsibility and the understanding that we belong to the land and not the opposite. So they consider that being wise is to think and act as ancestors. and acting for the well-being of those who will inherit the earth after us. So now the little activity that I like us to share. Sorry, I'm going to skip the video, but I will send it to you later because also Naolo wanted me to share it. I would like you to take just a couple of minutes to think in a place that you belong. You know, that kind of place that you feel comfortable, that you go there to relax, or that you just feel that you belong. Could be a landscape, a river, a community, a mountain. And picture it in your mind. I think I have a hand. No? Okay, I thought I saw a hand. But picture it, please, in your mind. Do you still see my screen?
Yes, we see your screen, Alma.
Okay, perfect. I don't know why let me see, I lose this. So picture it in your mind and think exactly, how are my choices today shaping the future of this place? And what kind of place do I want it to be for the people in the future? And if your actions are contributing to that or not, and if they are not contributing, what kind of changes would you make to make that happen? I'll give you a couple of minutes. Anyone who might be ready to share with us what they have thought about it? Just feel free to open your microphone. Mariam?
Yeah, hello, everyone, and thank you for an interesting presentation. This reminds me of an old proverb, Arab proverb. It says, they have planted for us to eat, and we plant for them to eat.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mariam. Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone else who would like to share your thoughts? Of course, in my case, when I did this activity for myself, as you will see, I'm going to share here. I didn't decide in a single place. You know, there are many places for me that are in my heart because people also are part of that experience. So when I realized that, I said, okay, what can I do? You know, like little, you know, daily changes to create that change. And one of the things that I do is, like, for example, the University of the Environment where I work, they don't have any towels or dry machines in the toilets. Here you can see the sign that says, in our toilets, we don't have towels, we don't have dryers. So how do you dry your hands? And from that, every single time I use a public toilet, I just wash my hands, and then I start to create new things to dry those. Another thing that I have decided to do is to start eating less red meat. And I am almost 100% vegetarian. I'm still not there at all, but it is a huge footprint that I have changed just by doing that. And the other thing that I have done is, like, when it comes to electronic devices, I try to use them as much or as long as possible. So I don't change them that much, and I don't put that pressure on mining, etc. And when I buy a new phone or when I buy a new computer, I try to make sure that these are products that are free from conflict mining, and with the clothes as well. I try to follow that. So those are the small changes that I have done, and to contribute to preserve all these places and the people that are within and that are so special for me. So now let's move on. So when we analyze the panel's key insights, we can see how that communities across the Americas are bringing alternatives that we urgently need to confront climate change and ensure the sustainable management of land and resources for food security, justice, and our shared future. So this transformation is not only theoretical, it's already taking place on the ground, as we are seeing. So communities are reclaiming territorial rights and reshaping the law from the ground up, demonstrating how resistance is about standing with the earth and with each other. So viewed through these lenses, cultural diversity and plural territorial relations can become also a way to see property as a story of inclusion and hope. And I'm not going to talk about, because I've been talking about stories of inclusion and hope. So recognizing that land through private, collective, and individual dimensions allows for a more balanced power relations where initiative and wealth can coexist with equity and sustainability. And ultimately, that collective ownership offers a viable economical alternative that can address the deep social and environmental challenges that are rooted in historical exclusion, building stronger pathways for prevention, resilience, and adaptation also to climate change. So what is this inclusion that I've been talking about and the opposite view? So we have seen that these communities are transforming this reality in the ground. They are adapting, they are evolving in response to the climate change, the challenges that breed climate change, displacement, food insecurity, and inequality. They continue, but in spite of this, they continue to navigate within the same legal and economic systems that were rooted from the colonial visions and outdated for development paradigms. And maybe you are saying, like, what is she talking about? But we have to take into consideration that the legal systems have to evolve with the people. Otherwise, it's not going to come effective. And to understand the barriers that this community face today, we must look back to those origins, the origins of the systems that were founded by the colonial era to exclude other visions and other cultures. So across the world, we still have legal systems operated within frameworks that were designed during the colonial era, a time where structures of exclusion and dispossessions were created and that continue to shape our legal, political, and social institutions. Do I have only 4 minutes, Nicole?
Yes.
Okay, so to this vision, I'm going to hurry up because we have this. So the importance of seeing this is the impact that this have had so far. So I have this, the US Department of Agriculture have shown these numbers that who owns the rural land in the US. And I was really struck by finding out that white land owners control about the 98% of privately owned farmland. Black American, Indian, Asian, and Hispanic landowners control just over 2% of the land. So these figures reveal the enduring legacy of racial inequality and land ownership in the US. And of course, it continued to shape who access to land, wealth, and opportunity. And this is how, as I told you, it comes striking for me that food independence is power, no? Very, very powerful words that Bonita said. Mexico is another story, but lately, although the communities hold or control the 52% of the national territory, the current mega projects that are supported by the government are threatening these collective systems that are in the hill. So I'm going to move and I'm going to stop here so I don't take more of the time on what I'm proposing for the research to be. So the central hypothesis of the research and the goal is the hypothesis food security and collective stewardship, when reinforced through legally binding collective agreements or community norms, can serve as a foundation for legal and policy reforms that advance environmental and land justice through financial mechanisms and the recognition of collective land rights. So the research goal will be to analyze how collective models of land ownership can be strengthened through rights protection and improved access to finance and investment, maximizing the impact on community-based food security initiatives and advancing environmental climate and social justice towards sustainable development. And the outcomes of the goals will be to produce a guiding document, a concise guide outlining the key principles and processes that local authorities, like in this case in the DMD region, should consider when developing public policies on food sovereignty and collective land tenure systems. In the long term, by strengthening the rights of collective land tenure systems and enable them to qualify for financial investments and mechanisms, I seek to contribute to food security, land, and environmental justice. So the strategy will be for this process to follow an international and a national route. Internationally, to identify potential entry points, in this case, for example, for the siege, to engage with international platforms such as the UN and other global forums to bring land and food justice discussions into broader policy spaces. And the other one will be a national route to explore how these policies ideas can be adapted within the US and regional context. So we could identify opportunities for collaboration and to increment policy reform. And I'm going to stop here. I have a little bit more to share, but I think that can be also be shared if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alma. Great job. We do have someone ask, would you be willing to share your presentation?
Of course.
Yes, I don't think that'll be an issue, Augustine. We will be sure to share the presentation as a follow-up. Before we finish out, I do want to provide individuals with the opportunities to ask you any questions that they may have. So I will first concede to our guests. Before I ask my questions, does anyone have any questions for Alma? All right, no questions from our guests. So I have but one, because I noticed that in your presentation you did make some updates based on some of the feedback that I gave to you. So yeah, and I really appreciate you doing that. So I wanted to take a look at though, talk about the core tension between community-led work and preserving the hyperlocal context, specific, excuse me, nature of solutions and the desire to scale them on a broader impact. So yeah, your project, like you did that seamlessly, right? And you thoughtfully navigated it by proposing that you work with local booklets and broader policy research. So the question is, what do you see as the biggest risk and attempting to scale uh, models, community models like this, and how will the project design work to mitigate the potential for homogenizing or erasing local specificity in the purest of policy influence?
I think the biggest risk could be to what I call losing base is and to unify the vision. You know, when we scale these models internationally, first of all, we don't do it the right way. Normally we do from the top to the bottom when it should be from the bottom to the top. And we tend to unify or universalize them. And that's for me the biggest risk. So this is why making sure that the communities and the projects control their voices, co-design, and active listening is very, very important to make sure that this doesn't happen. Because I think it's possible, and this is also why I talk a lot about bringing diversity perspectives within the law as well. We need to make broader that perception. I don't know if that.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Alma. I mean, I have other questions, but I know that we are a little bit over, so I want to say thank you. I do appreciate you sharing with us. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And with that, I'm going to stop the recording.